Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. Now that we have had a chance to see how the Audiopocalypse miniset has affected the meta, it's time to think about okay, what kind of card changes should there be in order for the meta to be even better. What can I say about the current meta? The current meta is actually quite diverse. We have most classes playable. Warlock is a big exception. Warlock really sucks right now. Then Mage also has some problems, but there are also some promising developments with Mage. Then there are a couple of outliers. Your Paladin and the Big Beast Hunter seem to be quite a bit above everything else, so those two probably are going to keep increasing in popularity if nothing is changed, especially Pure Paladin looks really strong. We have a couple of classes that have a lot of diversity, like Death Knight and Demon Hunter. Neither of those is particularly oppressive, they're just in a great position because they have many decks that you can play. So how do you go about fixing this type of meta? First of all, the couple of outliers, so we do need some nerfs, especially to Pure Paladin. And when it comes to Pure Paladin, by far the best performing card is the Purator. I think I would increase the mana cost of the Purator by 1. I mean, increasing mana cost is the nerf that Blizzard loves to do, and it would actually fit very well into this case. And then the other thing that caused the rise of Pure Paladin is now their Doomhammer style weapon and their ability to buff its attack very easily. And Feast and Famine probably could go up to 2 mana. Give your hero +3 attack this turn, mana thirst 4 and lifesteal. So if that went up to 2 mana, then it would still be comparable to Rockbiter weapon that Shaman used to use with Doomhammer, but it would make Paladin just that little bit slower. So I think those would be the changes that I would make to Paladin to just keep Pure Paladin from taking over everything. Then clearly the second best deck in the game is Big Beast Hunter, and Big Beast Hunter is a little bit more difficult. Hunter has some variety, because there's the Big Beast Hunter and Face Hunter is still around, but the two share so many cards. We have cards like Hope of Quel'Thalas, which is the best card in Big Beast Hunter, but lackluster card in Face Hunter. So Hope of Quel'Thalas I think could be nerfed. I don't think it would affect Face Hunter too much. Face Hunter probably should already ditch that card anyway, and that could help a little bit against Big Beast Hunter. But then we have cards like Hydralodon, which is one of the best cards in both archetypes. Then we have the Wild Seed package. The Wild Seed package keeps being strong, and it's kind of hard. Okay, maybe it could be touched. If you were to touch the Wild Seed package, you would probably start by touching Wild Spirits, because that is the best card in the Wild Seed package, but that will nerf practically every single Hunter deck, because all Hunter decks like to use that. Then if you try to look some differences between Big Beast Hunter and Face Hunter, well, Selective Breeder is a card that is only used in Big Beast Hunter, so that could be some kind of a target. So with Hunter, I have quite a bit of difficulty in figuring out what would be the exact way to nerf it, so that Face Hunter would remain viable, but Big Beast Hunter would be knocked down a notch. Hope of Quel'Thalas being my main suggestion, but I don't think Hope of Quel'Thalas nerf is enough. You put Hope of Quel'Thalas to 7 mana and it's totally useless. You reduce it into a 3/2 weapon, and that's a pretty minor nerf. I mean, it does something, but does it do enough? So yeah, we'll have to think about that a little bit more, I think, but something should be done over there. But that's basically the extent of nerfs. I don't think we need any other nerfs than Paladin and Hunter. And then we could use a number of buffs, because there's still quite a lot of classes that only have one archetype that's playable, and we could get something new for those. One card that I would like to see buffed, although I'm a little bit afraid of it, but maybe, would be the Flesh Behemoth. Taunt, Death Rattle, draw another undead and summon a copy of it. Flesh Behemoth is used in a bunch of big decks, but notably not the Big Demon Hunter, which is the best big deck. Also not in the good variant of Big Druid. But stuff like Big Shaman, for example, stuff like Thaddeus Warlock, use Flesh Behemoth. Okay, sometimes you just want to cheat out the Flesh Behemoth and its cost doesn't really matter, but if its cost went down to, let's say, 8 mana, then it would be a little bit better. If you don't get your high roll, you don't get that early summon, then playing the Flesh Behemoth from your hand would be a little bit easier. And that could help a number of archetypes that try to play with big undead things. Another way to try to help Warlock, because Warlock is the one that's really suffering right now, would be try to help the Imp Warlock somehow, and one way I think would be to improve Crescendo. When Crescendo was buffed from 3 mana to 2 mana, it did something, but that wasn't the buff that I wanted for Crescendo originally. I wanted Crescendo to deal 1 point of damage more, because that would just make Crescendo so much more useful for clearing the board, for enabling your counterattack, even for reaching for that lethal. So I would like to see Crescendo stay at 2 mana and get 1 more damage, and then I think Crescendo would be in a pretty good spot, and that would really make the fatigue package worthwhile in Imp Warlock and help Imp Warlock survive in the current meta. As for Mage, I'm a little bit scared about buffing Mage because we see some anecdotal evidence of success with Mage, although not widespread success with Mage. But I mean, the mini set did try to improve secrets, and it did give new cards again to Secret Mage in Wild, but Secret Mage just cannot survive very well in Standard. But what about if we buff the Scuttlebutt Ghoul? Because that could also buff Secret Rogue. Rogue is also struggling a little bit, Rogue is slightly better than Mage, but let's say Scuttlebutt Ghoul to 3 mana 2/4, so that you would be more easily able to use Scuttlebutt Ghoul into your early game, get that out there, defend against aggressive decks, get some pressure against slow decks. I think that just might help various decks that rely on secrets. Another card that maybe could see buff in Mage would be Arc Splitter. Arc Splitter to a 2 mana 3/2, so that you could play that on curve, you would get those Arcane Bolts into your hand much more reliably, then you could use them either to defend or to attack, but you would just have access to them. Now it's really inconvenient to get access to them, because playing Arc Splitter is a little bit difficult. And the way Arc Splitter currently works is that you usually play it much later in the game, because you just can't afford the 3 mana to play it early. Priest already has a couple of playable archetypes in Undead Priest and in Control Priest as well. I actually worry sometimes that whether Control Priest should be nerfed a little. I have been thinking about the Behemoth. Behemoth is a clear outlier in that deck, but maybe the deck overall isn't strong enough to warrant a nerf, so I guess maybe not. However, getting something like Overheal Priest, Menagerie Priest, giving some tools for those without giving more tools to the existing Priest archetypes, and one tool for that could be Dreamboat. I have played with Dreamboat in Menagerie Priest. It's a fun card, but it's just way too weak. So buffing Dreamboat, let's say to a 2/3 base stats for 2 mana, could already make it a whole lot better. Then when we think about Menagerie Priest, Dreamboat is a Naga, so having access to that Naga tribe from a playable card, then that would be just a sweet improvement. And also because of its battle cry, it would fit well into Overheal Priest, and having more health and attack for Overheal Priest could also help that archetype. So I would like to see that attempted in order to get something going for these weaker Priest archetypes. And finally there's the question of Druid. Druid was just nerfed, Zoc Druid is almost dead, right now people are playing Big Druid. Helping these ramp Druid decks is tricky, they are very polarizing. If you buff them, then they just completely annihilate some of the matchups and they still keep losing others, or they dominate the entire ladder. Where did all the aggressive Druid decks go, and could we do something to help aggressive Druid decks? In aggressive Druid decks there are some undead synergies, like Elder Nadox for example, and they would need more ways to swarm the board. They could use more undead synergies, more undead cards to proc those synergies rather. When it comes to buffing Druid, I would like to see the Druid buffs focus on making aggressive Druid decks more viable. Stuff like buffing Drum Circle, let's say make it 6 mana. Priest of the Deceased could go into some Druid decks. Why not give it an undead tag? It's clearly undead, right? So that could be something. Then there is the new Blood Treant. Maybe Blood Treant could be cheaper so that you could actually use it more effectively. Obviously, now that it's 5 mana, it has some synergies with Tambourine, which would be lost if it was cheaper, but I don't think those Tambourine synergies are that important. So I think that could be worthwhile. And then Spread the Word is another card, because if you have stuff that you can just swarm the board with, like Blood Treants, then you need ways to draw cards. Spread the Word is already used somewhat effectively in some of the slower Druid decks, so it would be a buff to them as well. Let's say it's reduced to 3 mana, but still it could also give something more for aggressive Druids. Aggressive druid decks are just lacking the cards right now that could really swarm the board effectively, and I haven't figured out what card would be a swarming card that could be buffed. Maybe there is one. I would have to think about it even more. But that sort of stuff what I would want to see. Support for aggressive decks, support for Menagerie, Overheal, Warlock, Imp Warlock, maybe some support for big decks, support for a bunch of these archetypes that currently do not see play, and a bit of nerf for the top 2 archetypes, and I think we would be moving towards an even better meta. Thank you for watching. Click like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and a special thanks to all of my Patreon supporters, YouTube members and Twitch subscribers who make all of these videos possible.